Hi, my name is Mr. Aaron Bergman, and welcome to Concepts of Algebra and Geometry. I'm very excited to have you here. I made this little video because this class is different, and I wanted to let you know how it's different and why it's different. But first, let's talk about the traditional math classroom. And although I'm going to talk about some pitfalls first, I do want to say that there are lots of really great teachers out there in traditional math classrooms providing wonderful experiences for their kids, and the students are learning lots. But in order to do so, you've got to navigate some pitfalls. So if you don't have a talented, amazing, wonderful teacher, then often it can just feel like there's one pace being catered to and one learning style, and the teachers, it's very teacher-centered, and the students. So the teacher is the one doing the most thinking in the room, and the students are doing less than that. And sometimes they can tune it out or be bored or hide or whatever. And I also think it's kind of difficult for parents to be involved. That's, like I said, if you don't have a wonderful teacher. And then also, I think that the traditional math classroom wasn't really designed with teens today. And and if you're a teen right now listening to this, maybe you don't identify with some of these things, but there are a lot who do. And these are not your fault. I think that society and technology have kind of conditioned lots of teens today to expect high levels of interaction just all the time, and then immediate feedback. You put something out there, and then it comes back, and you get immediate feedback. The information being sent there's an expectation of like fast, high volume, multi-sensory information coming at you, and that's the norm and what's expected. And then on top of that, I think there's this expectation that information has got to be searchable, and kind of a preference for information that you can type into a search engine like Google or whatever and be able to find it as you need it and not necessarily need to memorize it. On top of that, sociologists and psychologists are telling us that just cases of severe anxiety and even math anxiety and ADHD are on the rise. It's not that they're just being diagnosed more, but the actual prevalence in our society is on the rise for these things. And if you're going to be in a math classroom, I think that should be taken into account. On top of that, we've got some things in our own situation, in our own time, that we have to think about. And at ninth grade is kind of an entry point for many schools. We have lots of people coming to us from public schools and private schools and international schools and charter schools. And even if you've been part of SEH for a long time, you might be coming from the boys' middle school or the girls' middle school. And so you've got all these different people from all these different experiences being equipped differently by different math classrooms. And so that's a challenge. And then, so thinking about all that, you've got different people coming in, and then, so we've got maybe 4 different math classes, and so placement can be kind of a question. And if your classrooms have like if they cater to a narrow bandwidth of students, then the placement becomes like severely critical. But then, and it's difficult too, because although we might know a ton of information about students and be able to make a relatively good placement choice, sometimes we don't. Sometimes all we have is like the name of the course, a grade, and then if we're lucky, some placement data, like how well you did on a particular day on a particular test. And so sometimes that's just not enough. But even if it is, then that doesn't even take into account the fact that students change over time, particularly in ninth grade. Some students flourish and grow wonderfully, and then other students have a really difficult time. And so your needs in September might be different from your needs in October, November, December. So the needs of the student change all the time, and we've got to be able to accommodate for that. So what we did in the math department was kind of like step back and imagine what kind of math class we need. What we need is a class where it's student-centered, where you can go at your own pace and your own style and have your own needs catered to. And then on top of that, we've got, we want to make sure we solidify our Algebra 1 skills so that we're ready for next year in Algebra 2. But then at the same time, we kind of discover geometry together. If all this is going to happen, then the teacher can't be kind of up at front performing for students. What you've got to translate to the teacher as a coach, giving students what they need on a one-by-one basis. And that's exactly what I'm thrilled to announce, is that we've got something this is called the format of learning is what I call the dashboard classroom, whereby the teacher has been given dashboards The students are given online tasks to do, and they progress through them with checks for understanding, and they all show up on a dashboard for the teacher to look at. And looking at this dashboard, I can see when students finish early or when students are struggling and need help. I can see if students are working together and then maybe they get a couple questions incorrect, and it might be time to have a group conversation, or sometimes even a class-wide conversation. Conversely, if everyone's getting a particular slide or a particular task completely correct, then that might be a strength of our class, and I don't really need to engage anyone. We can just move on to other things. I love it. It's great, and it gives me the information I need to have one-on-one conversations or group conversations as they are needed, as those needs arise. We actually have two different dashboards, one for Algebra 1 and one for Geometry. So let me show you the Algebra 1. It's hosted by alex.com, and at the beginning of the year, students are giving a diagnostic knowledge check. This is what it looks. This is kind of the results of a knowledge check. This gives us a dashboard of what students already know, and then from there, students begin learning. And Alex is really wonderful. I've never seen a platform so acutely zone in on exactly what students need so quickly, and it gives them the practice that they need in precisely the areas that they need it. My role becomes more of a coach, and so I help students navigate this platform, because although it's easy to navigate, there are some tips and tricks and habits that I want students to have so that they can really efficiently and effectively learn the material in a way that's good for them and at a great pace. Of course, if students have questions about the math, I enjoy listening to them and giving them usually the one little piece of information that they're missing in order to move forward. Alex allows students to work on their own skills at their own pace. And for some, this means making sure that by the end of the year, they're prepared for Algebra 2. But for a smaller population, it means that they can be promoted to Honors Algebra 2 at the end of the year if they demonstrate that it's the most appropriate setting for them. After a couple of weeks, this process, Alex.com becomes largely automated. Like, students can function within, for the most part, students can function on their own. And so what we do is we send this becomes their homework, and in class, we begin to discover geometry. And geometry is hosted by Desmos.com. Let me show you what Desmos can do. Oh, and let me show you just a very small clip from our textbook. You can see here the most important information is left blank. This might be a big idea, like the sum of the measures of an angles in every triangle is, and the answer is 180 degrees. Maybe in other classes, the teacher would tell them exactly, they'd start the class with 180 degrees, but in this class, we go through an investigation. I ask the students to draw a triangle, and you can see here's my triangle on the left, and student triangles are on the right. And they measure and then add up the angles, and I ask them, what do you notice? Every time they seem to add up to what number? And the students say, 180. And that's how we discover that the sum of the measures of all the angles in a triangle is 180 degrees. We do a lot of math this way, where geometry is discovered, and of course it's done on a dashboard, so the students can learn at their own pace and in their own style. I love it. It's great. Of course, it comes with its own pitfalls, but I really prefer this method of teaching for this population for this time. So next steps. Students, there are a variety of get-to-know-you activities at our class webpage on Haiku Power School, and so you can go check those out. Families, there is a supply list, and it's a pretty standard supply list, except there is one thing. There's a compass, and you can see my email and about that. Of course, send me an email. Students and families, please contact me. If you're excited about the Dashboard Classroom, let me know. If you have questions, let me know. If you are wondering something, if you're anxious about something, please let me know. I'm very responsive to email, and I look forward to talking with you about them. One last thing is that during the time of this recording, SEH is preparing to move back into a reopening, and but of course all these decisions were made about these dashboards, and Alex and Desmos were all like put into place before the pandemic ever struck. So these are tools that I would use even if there were no pandemic, but in this particular case, they happen to really translate very well to socially distanced learning or even online learning very, very quickly and very easily. So that's a bit of good news as well. That we've got a great educational system, like the system the classroom put in place happens to work very well in a variety of settings. So that's it. Thanks. Looking forward to meeting with you and working with you, and I think we're going to have a great year.